Novara Station's central market sprawled across 3 levels of commercial chaos, where dozens of species exchanged goods, gossip, and carefully maintained social hierarchies. Dr. Sienna Voss navigated the crowds with her recorder active, documenting interspecies interactions for her xenobiology research. That's when she first saw Wreath. The Kallrix were considered beautiful by nearly every species standards. Their skin displayed flowing holographic patterns that shifted with emotion. Their long, elegant ears could configure into dozens of aesthetically pleasing shapes. Their features conformed to mathematical ratios that multiple cultures found instinctively attractive. Wreath was Kallrix, but her skin was plain gray. No holographic patterns, no flowing colors, just flat monochrome dermis that her species considered catastrophically ugly. Sienna watched in growing horror as vendors served other customers while making Wreath wait, saw shoppers give her wide berth, their body language screaming discomfort, noticed how children pointed and whispered while parents pulled them away with expressions mixing pity and disgust. Wreath moved through the market like a ghost, eyes downcast, shoulders hunched, trying to occupy as little space as possible. She purchased waste reclamation supplies, the job nobody wanted, perfect for someone nobody acknowledged. Sienna followed at a distance, academically documenting what she was witnessing but feeling sick about it. This wasn't just social preference, this was systematic erasure. Wreath wasn't just avoided. She was treated like a mistake that everyone politely pretended not to see. Over the following weeks, Sienna's research revealed the full scope. Wreath's contributions to group conversations were ignored. Her presence in shared spaces caused others to leave. She was passed over for promotions despite excellent work. She ate alone, lived alone, existed in a bubble of isolation maintained by collective cruelty. "Why do you keep documenting the defective one?" a Kallrix research subject asked during an interview. "She's not representative of our species." "She is Kallrix," Sienna said carefully. "Genetically, perhaps. But she lacks the patterns. Without beauty, what worth does she have?" The subject said this casually, like discussing weather. "It's kindness, really. We don't force her to leave the station. She's allowed to work to exist. That's generous considering her condition." Sienna ended the interview early before she said something that would destroy her research access entirely. The breaking point came 3 weeks into her documentation. Sienna was in the commissary during peak hours when Wreath entered. Rare. She usually ate in her quarters. Every table had open seats, but conversation stopped as Wreath approached, making it abundantly clear she was unwelcome. Wreath stood holding her meal tray, searching for somewhere to sit, her gray skin somehow looking grayer with humiliation. She was about to leave when Sienna made a choice. She stood, walked directly to Wreath, and spoke loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Would you like to join me? I'd appreciate the company." The commissary went absolutely silent. Wreath stared at Sienna like she'd announced gravity was optional, her long ears flattening with confusion and desperate hope and terror combined. Everyone was watching. This was the moment where Sienna could retreat, laugh it off, preserve her research access and social standing. Instead, Sienna reached out and took Wreath's hand, gently guiding her to the table. "I'm Sienna," she said. Sitting across from Wreath like this was perfectly normal. "I've been conducting research on the station for a few weeks. You work in waste management, right? I'd love to hear about that. Environmental systems fascinate me." Wreath's voice, when she finally found it, was barely a whisper. You're touching me. Humans can see the patterns." "I don't see any patterns. I see a person I'd like to have coffee with." Sienna smiled. "Unless you'd rather eat alone, no pressure." Wreath's eyes filled with tears. "No, please, I'd like company." They ate together while the entire commissary watched in shocked silence. And Sienna held Wreath's hand across the table, making it clear this wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. It was a choice, and it would change everything. Chapter 2. The consequences arrived within hours. Dr. Yavish, Sienna's supervisor, summoned her to his office with the kind of formal tone that meant trouble. "You were seen publicly associating with a defective Kallrix," he said without preamble. "Multiple researchers have complained. Kallrix subjects are refusing interviews, claiming you're contaminated by association." "Her name is Wreath," Sienna said, "and she's not defective. She has a genetic variation that affects her skin pigmentation. That's all." "That's all," Yavish's frustration showed. "Dr. Voss, you're here to observe cultural dynamics, not interfere with them. The Kallrix have clear social structures regarding individuals who lack holographic patterns. Your intervention is disrupting established norms. Established cruelty isn't worth preserving. That's not your determination to make. You're a researcher, not a social activist." Yavish leaned forward. "I'm ordering you to cease contact with the subject, maintain professional boundaries, respect cultural contexts." Sienna met his gaze steadily. "If respecting culture means participating in systematic dehumanization, I'll happily be disrespectful. You want my resignation. I want you to do your job without destroying interspecies relations." "Then my job description needs updating." Sienna stood. "Because I'm not going to ignore cruelty just because it's culturally sanctioned. Wreath is a person. She deserves basic dignity. If providing that violates protocol, the protocol is broken." She left before Yavish could respond. Her research access was quietly restricted within days. Kallrix subjects canceled interviews. Other xenobiologists stopped sharing data. Professional consequences mounted like storm clouds. But something else was happening too. Sienna began meeting Wreath regularly, coffee in the commissary where she deliberately chose visible tables, walks through the market where she asked Wreath's opinions on purchases, conversations where she actually listened. "You don't have to do this," Wreath said during their third coffee meeting. "People are talking. You're damaging your reputation." "My reputation will survive. Tell me more about your recycling optimization ideas. That efficiency improvement you mentioned sounds fascinating." Wreath blinked, clearly unused to anyone caring about her thoughts. "It's just, the current waste processing creates unnecessary redundancy. If we restructured the filtration sequence and implemented cascade recycling, we could reduce processing time by 30% and recover materials currently being discarded." "That's brilliant. Have you proposed this to station management?" "I tried, they didn't." Wreath's voice trailed off. "They didn't listen. I'm just waste reclamation. Nobody listens to the defective one." "I'm listening. And those ideas could save the station millions in operational costs." Sienna pulled out her datapad. "Would you be willing to document your proposals? I know people in station administration." "You'd really do that?" "Wreath, you're a genius being ignored because people are too shallow to see past appearance." "Yes, I'd really do that." Over the following weeks, something remarkable happened. Wreath began to unfold. The defensive hunch in her shoulders eased. Her voice grew stronger. She made jokes, dry observations about station life that made Sienna laugh. She shared her thoughts on everything from environmental system to station politics with sharp intelligence that had been suppressed by years of social rejection. Other humans on the station began following Sienna's example. Marcus from engineering invited Wreath to a technical discussion group. Dr. Patel included her in a social gathering. When Kallrix vendors tried to refuse service, human customers spoke up in her defense. The Kallrix community responded with outrage. Formal complaints flooded station administration about human interference in cultural practices. Pressure mounted for Sienna to stop her disruptive behavior. Then came the efficiency competition. Station administration announced a contest for operational improvements, offering recognition and bonuses for the best proposals. Sienna encouraged Wreath to submit her waste management innovations. "They won't consider it if they know it's from me," Wreath said. "Then submit it anonymously. Let the ideas speak for themselves." Wreath did and won. The proposal promised 40% efficiency improvements and substantial cost savings. Station administration was ecstatic, announcing immediate implementation. Then they revealed the author. The cognitive dissonance was spectacular. Some Kallrix claimed fraud. Others insisted Wreath must have stolen the ideas from someone competent. But the evidence was undeniable. Detailed technical knowledge, implementation specifics only someone working waste reclamation would know. Station administration promoted Wreath to senior environmental engineer. Suddenly, the defective one was necessary, essential, required in meetings she'd never have been invited to before. "I don't know what to do," Wreath confessed to Sienna the night before her first leadership meeting. "They hated me yesterday. Today they need me. I'm still the same person with the same gray skin." "Exactly. You're the same brilliant person you always were. They're the ones who changed, forced to recognize worth they'd been deliberately ignoring." Sienna squeezed her hand. "Go show them what they've been missing." Wreath did, and the station slowly, grudgingly began to change. Chapter 3. The leadership meeting was brutal. Wreath presented her environmental systems redesigned to a room of department heads, some human, some other species, and 3 Kallrix who couldn't hide their discomfort at sharing a table with her. "The Cascade recycling system requires infrastructure modifications," Wreath explained, her voice steady despite the hostile stares. "Initial investment is significant, but return on investment occurs within 8 months through reduced processing costs and materials recovery." "How do we know these calculations are accurate?" a Kallrix administrator challenged. "Waste reclamation workers don't typically have engineering expertise." "I have engineering expertise," Wreath said quietly. "I studied environmental systems at the Kallrix Technical Institute. Graduated top of my class. But no engineering firms would hire someone who looks like me, so I took the only position available." The room went silent. Several administrators shifted uncomfortably. "Your credentials check out," the human station director said, glaring at the Kallrix administrator who'd questioned her. "Implementation begins next week. Wreath, you'll lead the project. Choose your team." After the meeting, Wreath found Sienna waiting outside. "I did it. I actually did it." "You were brilliant." Sienna hugged her. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying, validating, strange." Wreath's voice shook slightly. "They have to acknowledge me now. They need me, but they still don't want to see me." "Then make them see you anyway, on your terms." The project's success was undeniable. Processing efficiency improved 42%. Cost savings exceeded projections. Station administration published a report highlighting the innovations, and Wreath's name appeared in official documentation for the first time in her career. Other changes rippled outward. A Kallrix couple with a daughter born without holographic patterns approached Sienna at the market. "We heard about Wreath," the mother said quietly. "We've been hiding our daughter, keeping her in our quarters. We thought that was kindness, protecting her from what others would say. Her bioluminescence flickered shame. But you showed us we were wrong. She deserves to exist in the world." The next week, Sienna saw them in the commissary. The whole family, including the young girl with plain gray skin. People stared, but the parents didn't hide their daughter. They sat together openly, and when others avoided their table, they remained anyway. Small victories accumulated. A Kallrix merchant began serving Wreath without making her wait. A mixed-species social group invited her to their gathering. The technical discussion group Marcus ran became regular meetings where Wreath's insights were valued. But resistance remained fierce. Traditional Kallrix organized protests about human corruption of cultural values. Vendors who served Wreath faced boycotts from other Kallrix. The social fractures deepened. "Maybe I should step back," Wreath said during one particularly difficult week when vandals had defaced her quarters with slurs. "I don't want to cause divisions." "You're not causing anything," Sienna said firmly. "Their prejudice is causing divisions. Your existence just makes it visible. That discomfort, that's them confronting the fact that they've been cruel to someone who didn't deserve it. But what if it gets worse? Then we deal with worse together." You're not facing this alone anymore." Wreath's eyes filled with tears. Why do you keep fighting for me?" "Because you matter. Because treating you with basic dignity shouldn't be revolutionary, but apparently it is. Because I'd rather be disruptive and right than comfortable and complicit." Sienna took her hand. "And because you're my friend, Wreath, that's reason enough." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Kallrix youth. Younger generation who'd grown up on integrated stations, who questioned their elders' rigid beauty standards, who'd watched Wreath's success and wondered why they'd been taught to dismiss her. They started a social movement, Patterns Don't Define Worth, advocating for accepting Kallrix with genetic variations. The elders condemned it as corruption. The youth persisted anyway. Sienna documented all of it, her research transforming into active observation of cultural evolution. Her paper, Systematic Social Exclusion, Economic and Moral Costs of Appearance-Based Discrimination, became controversial but influential, cited in debates across multiple academic and political forums. But for Sienna, the real measure was simpler. Watching Wreath walk through the station with her head up, shoulders back, no longer apologizing for existing. That was worth every professional consequence she'd faced. 6 months after Sienna first took Wreath's hand in the commissary, the station held a ceremony honoring environmental innovations. Wreath stood on stage before hundreds of species, receiving formal recognition for systems that had transformed station operations. Sienna watched from the audience as Wreath spoke clearly and confidently about cascade recycling, infrastructure optimization, and future sustainability projects. Gone was the hunched, invisible woman from the market. This was someone who'd reclaimed her worth. After the ceremony, a young Kallrix girl approached Wreath nervously. Her skin was gray like Wreath's, her ears flattened with fear. Behind her, parents hovered uncertainly. Wreath knelt to the child's level, seeing her own past in those frightened eyes. "What's your name?" Wreath asked gently. "Kira," the girl whispered. "Everyone says I'm ugly, that I'm broken." "You're not broken, you're different. And different is beautiful in ways they haven't learned to see yet." Wreath took the girl's hand. "You're not alone anymore, I promise." The parents stepped forward, their bioluminescence showing nervous hope. "We've kept her hidden. We thought we were protecting her." "Hiding teaches her to be ashamed of something that isn't shameful," Wreath said, standing but keeping hold of Kira's hand. "Let her exist in the world. Let her be seen. There's a community now, others like us, and humans who see worth beyond patterns." The mother's eyes filled with tears. Would you talk with her sometimes, be someone she can look to?" "I'd be honored," Wreath smiled at Kira. "We'll have coffee. I'll show you my environmental systems work. And I'll introduce you to my friend Sienna, who taught me that worth isn't determined by appearance." Later, Sienna and Wreath walked through the station market. This time, when they passed through crowds, reactions were mixed rather than uniformly hostile. Some Kallrix still turned away, but others nodded acknowledgement. Human vendors greeted Wreath by name. The young Kallrix from the Patterns Don't Define Worth movement waved enthusiastically. "Thank you," Wreath said quietly, squeezing Sienna's hand. "For seeing me when everyone else looked away. For treating me like I mattered when my own people said I didn't. You always mattered. They just needed someone to point out their definition of worth was broken." Sienna smiled. "You did the hard part, believing you deserved dignity even when the world said otherwise. I didn't believe it until you showed me. Then we helped each other. You taught me that observation without intervention is just witnessing cruelty. I needed that lesson." They settled at their usual commissary table, no longer empty around them, but joined by Marcus, Dr. Patel, and 2 progressive young Kallrix who defected from traditional social circles. Conversation flowed easily, ranging from station politics to terrible jokes about waste management. Across the commissary, the family with young Kira sat together openly. The girl's gray skin caught light the same way Wreath's did, no holographic patterns but beautiful in its simplicity. Her parents didn't hide her. They let her exist. small changes. Not universal acceptance, not complete transformation. Many Kallrix still clung to their beauty standards and social hierarchies, but cracks had formed in certainty that had seemed absolute. Sienna's supervisor had eventually stopped fighting her methodology, recognizing that her interference had produced the most significant cultural documentation in decades. Her paper was controversial but respected. Her research continued, but the real achievement wasn't academic. It was watching Wreath laugh freely, surrounded by friends who valued her intelligence and kindness over her appearance. It was seeing young Kira smile without shame. It was knowing that Kallrix with genetic variations no longer faced their isolation alone. "What's next for you?" Marcus asked Wreath. "Station director mentioned expanding your role to other facilities." "Maybe, but I want to stay here too, help others who are where I was." Wreath glanced at Sienna. "Someone showed me I deserved dignity. I can pay that forward." "We can pay it forward together," Sienna corrected. "I'm not going anywhere." Their hands clasped across the table, human and Kallrix, different species united by the simple revolutionary act of seeing worth beyond appearance. Around them, Novara Station continued its complicated dance of cultures and prejudices and slow, grudging progress. Not perfect, not complete, but changing. And in the commissary where Sienna had first taken Wreath's hand, where she'd chosen compassion over comfort and friendship over professional distance, a small community thrived. Built on the radical foundation that everyone deserves to be seen, heard, and valued, regardless of whether their skin displays holographic patterns or remains beautifully, defiantly, wonderfully gray. Wreath looked at the people gathered around their table, then at Sienna, her gray skin somehow more luminous than any holographic pattern. "I used to think I was invisible," she said quietly. "Now I feel seen for the first time in my life. Thank you for that." "Always," Sienna replied, squeezing her hand. "That's what friends do. We see each other, especially when the world refuses to look." They continued their conversation, laughter mixing with serious discussion, while across the station, other gray-skinned Kallrix ventured into public spaces with a little more courage, a little less shame.